Okay, this is the second part of our adding a component using Bootstrap 3 and Vue. The first one got a little bit long while scaffolding out the Bootstrap component. So we will move on from here. We're basically done bootstrapping the component, and now we're going to be doing all of our props. And then, of course, validation, actual validation, and emitting the credentials. So let's go ahead and move on from here. And we've got everything scaffolded out. And what we want to do is go ahead and start adding our props. So let me go ahead and change this. I had meant to on the controller, not controller, component. All right. That way, when we're looking at our DevTools, it shows as login component and not name. All right. So there we have it. We've got our name. Let's go ahead and put some, let's put our data in right now. So we're going to do data. And we're going to add, basically what we want is switching classes for validation that allow these things to change on the fly. So it would either have success or it would have error. And obviously we can't do anything if they're hard coded. So let's go ahead and put our data in. And we're going to do email success class. And that's going to equal blank right now. And we'll want them all to equal blank because we don't want these classes to show up under the initial load. We want the form to be blank. We don't say good or bad, so that it's at a blank starting point. You wouldn't want X's throughout the whole thing once it loaded right off the bat. You kind of want to have to hit the input box before it actually gives you feedback. Okay, so we've got an email success class. We've got a password success class. We're going to have the icon. So the success class is going to give us the red or the green borders. We still need the icons to show up, which are going to be different class sets. So we're going to do email icon class and password icon class. And we've got a little error there. There we go. Whoops. Okay, so this handles the checkbox. Okay, so the email icon class and the password icon class will now handle the check marks and the X's. So what we need to do now is we need to actually bind the classes into the component as necessary. So we know that we can do has success here to stop and start our green. So what we're going to do is we're going to use a vbind class, and let's see, yeah, we're going to do it in a vbind class. We're going to do a array style, and we're going to do it as email success class. Okay, so that's going to be that's going to toggle between two different class names. One's going to be has what is the goodness gracious, sorry, One's going to be has success, and one's going to be has error. So that's how we'll toggle that. We're going to do the same thing down here. We'll get rid of the static validation, and we'll do vbind class equals. We're going to use the array syntax, and it's going to be password success class. Okay. Now, that gets rid of both of them until we actually set them up. We're also going to want to remove these classes here because we don't want the check marks to show up or the errors to show up unless, well, we want them to show up as appropriate. So let's go ahead and vbind those classes in. We're going to vbind class equals, again, the array syntax, email icon class. All right. And then we're going to do the same thing in this span. Vbind class equals password icon class. Okay, so that's going to bind our variables that will hold our class names. Now what we need to do is we need to add methods so that we can change those on the fly. So we're going to add an input to this, add a input event, so we can do @input equals check email validation. All right, of course we don't have that method yet, but we're going to in just a second. On the password, we're going to do the same thing. So we can do @input equals check password validation. All right, now in our methods, we're going to want to go ahead and start them earlier because we're going to kind of put them in order. We'll do the check email validation. And we'll do check password validation. Oops, not capital. All right. Okay, so we just did a save, and it doesn't look like we have any errors. Just right now, all of our classes that are being bound are blank. So we lose our check mark, we lose our X, and we have no coloration because the email success class is empty. One thing to note is that these two classes don't get replaced. The vbind class just concatenates the class with a space in it to the existing set of classes. So if I put has error or has success in it, then it ends up being the 3 class names. It doesn't actually wipe the first 2 out and put 1 in. So that's really nice. Okay, so now we've got our scaffolding in Vue for dynamically changing the validation. What we need to be able to do is we need to be able to access the input box directly so that we can check its validation. And we could take the time to pass two-way binding to an email and to a password variable. We could check those individually, but there's an easier way to do it. It's just really quick. We're going to actually look at the validation function that exists already on the input devices, and we do that by adding a ref to our inputs, to our element. So any element that we put into the system, we can add a ref variable, and then that allows vue.js to directly reference that item in the DOM without having to worry about the separation between the virtual DOM and the real DOM. So if we do ref equals, let's do text email, and down here we're going to want to do the same thing for the password. So we're going to do ref equals text password. And if you're wondering why I did the txt, it's kind of old school for me when I used to do stuff in Flex and ActionScript. I used to, if there was a text box, I would reference that I'm talking about the text box using a txt, and chk for checkboxes, etc., etc. Sel for select boxes. Anyway, so now that we can actually access the component itself, the element itself from the DOM, we can test its validity based on whether it throws its internal validation testing. So we can test for required, for the email, we can test if it's an appropriate email. For password, we can test if it's required, and we can test against pattern matching. Because those are all internal validation techniques that it passes to the form. So let's go ahead and check our email validation, and we'll just do an if this dot refs. And you'll notice we're using the $refs character. This is how Vue associates with the real DOM, and it's a built-in prototype function. So if you're interested in how ref really works, you can look it up on the documentation. But just know that it's a way to actually interface with the DOM element, not just the virtual DOM element. So we're going to do text email dot check validity. And that's going to actually pull back of whether it's a valid entry or not. And that's using the browser / elements natural validation testing. So we don't have to actually handwrite the validation testing. Okay, so let's go ahead and scaffold this out. So this dot email success class, obviously if we're valid, we're going to want that to equal has success. Okay, so if we're valid, we already know. Let's see if that will function real quick. R Shift E. See, there we go. So now we've got our circular showing that it's valid. As I was telling you, we don't have to have the dot extension, domain extension at the end to have a valid email. Never seen one, but I'm sure if I did a little looking, they exist. So now we have the success ring, but we need the check mark too. So let's put the check in so that when it validates, we can get a check. This dot email icon class equals. Now this one's going to be the longer version because we've got the glyph icon, we've got glyph icon dash OK, and then form control feedback dash feedback, so that we can give feedback to the form itself. So that's our connector between the item and the form with feedback using Bootstrap. Okay, so we save that and we put our @e, we get the check mark. Awesome. So how do we need to get that in if it doesn't pass validation? As you can see, we don't have an event to say, oh, that's not right. So we need an else. Else. That means that this text email check validity has returned false. And we're going to do this, email success class equals has error. And we're going to do this dot email icon class equals, and we're just going to copy this real quick, B, and instead of OK, it will be remove, which gives us our little X. So from here, I'm going to refresh, starting from blank. I'm going to do R at E, and it works. And it has not refreshed yet. Let's make sure I'm not missing anything. Okay, sorry about that. I needed to actually shut down the server, the dev server, just reboot it. I have to do that every once in a while. And basically, all I did was stop my server and then reran my dev and brought it back up, and everything seems to be working as it should. I just actually had it running too long. I hadn't even restarted it since the first first part of the first video. So okay, so yeah, so everything's working normally now. We added the else and then added our error side of those variables to shove in our classes. So now if we start typing, we can do R, and you can see that it's going to give us visual tactile feedback, not tactile, visual feedback as we type. So we can just do Robert at E, and like I said, that's actually a valid syntax for an email. Dot, and then it becomes invalid, and then it's valid again. Okay, and then for our password, we want to do the same. We want to do this exact same thing. So we're going to do if this dot refs dot text password dot check validity. All right, now we're actually testing the actual input box. This dot password success class is going to equal has success. This dot password icon class equals, I'm just going to copy this right here. Copy. And actually, we'll just save ourselves a little time there and do that. Has error, has success, and of course these are password. So we can do that and Alt click, and we can hit them both at the same time. Password and delete. There we go. Now let's clean that extra space up there. Oh, I still have. Let me do escape out of that. I still had double cursors cleaning. All right. We're gonna hit save, and we've got now a clean system. Turn that off. There we go. Robert at email.com, and of course we're looking for a character, any character set that has to have a minimum of a length of 2 and a maximum of 6. So you'll see 1's not good enough, 2's fine, 3's fine, 4, 5, 6 is fine, then 7's bad, 8, 9, 10, 11, nothing else past that. So now we have real-time validation, which is cool. And we've got that feedback to the user, which shows that, I mean, it just gives him that feeling that things are working and happening while he's typing. Okay, all right. Well, that was a big portion of it. That was all of our visual feedback, showing whether their inputs and outputs were valid. So from here, let's see. Let's go ahead and add the sign-in property so that we can emit our values, our email and password to our parent component. So our parent component can then utilize that information for whatever purpose, maybe checking against a Firebase database or checking against a SQL database of some type. Of course, that's a different subject. Our component is only meant to fire out the credentials, and then a different object, a different component, whether it be the store or a simple flat single script component, does it. That's immaterial for the component. The component doesn't care. What we're doing is we're decoupling the component so it can be used however you feel like, in any situation. So that's what we're trying to do, is create all this decoupling so we can just toss it in to any Bootstrap 3 CSS style view program and it's usable. Okay, so let's go ahead and submit our login. And we're going to start by grabbing our variables off the input boxes. So we're going to do let email equal this dot refs dot text email dot value. And let's go ahead and just clean it up for the person who may need it next. And we're just going to add a trim to that. Okay, let password equal this dot refs dot text password dot value dot trim. Okay, so those are now we have some local variables in our submit. These are going to be the variables that we kick out on an emit event, so that our parent component can use them. So let's go ahead and emit them. We've got this dot emit, and emit is how we fire off a event so that our parent component can receive it. And our parent component will always be listening for this event, but obviously won't react until we fire it. So we've got a firing event, and then we've got the parent component listening for that event. So we've got this dot emit, and the $emit is how we fire an event. And we're going to do login component, credentials, login credentials. So that's going to be the name of our event. And then what we're going to do is we're going to send off an object as payload for our event, and we can simply name it or send off an object, and we'll do email. Actually, make this easy. We'll do email equals email, comma, password equals password. And of course, those are referencing these local variables right here. So we're pulling them from the actual text boxes, and then trimming them, and then loading them directly into the directly into the payload of our emit character. All right. So everything looks good. Of course, we can't sign in with anything else, so we've got that. And before I do this, let's go ahead and go to our hello view, and let's go ahead and put our first event listener in. So we can do v-on, and we can do, well, it's called login. Credentials. Okay, so this is going to tag our excuse me. This is going to be an event, so we can do what's the best way to do this? Let's just do check credentials. All right. And then under here, we'll put in a method. We'll call it check credentials. Let's see, lint wouldn't like that. All right, so let's just console.log, our email is, we'll do it like that, is plus, we're gonna get a payload here, so we'll just call it event. We could just payload or whatever, so we got event.email. All right, and then let's see, console.log password is plus event.password. Okay. Now those two are just basically reading the event payload, which is this right here in login component. So this will fire the login credentials, and the Hello Vue app, which is its parent, will receive those credentials and payload through its login credentials event listener. So if all is working well, we should see, we'll save that and we'll do robert@email.com and we'll do 1, 2, 3, 4 and we'll sign in. And sure enough, we've got email is, and there's our email address, and password is 1, 2, 3, 4. So what we've got now is we've got a fully functional component that is actually sending its information up to its parent, and it's validating it, and we've seen that that it's got visual feedback at all times. Now the problem is that one of the things that we didn't take in consideration is the sign-in. So you can sit there and sign in at any time, and we don't want this this other feedback to show up. At least I don't. So what I think we should do is go ahead and disable the sign-in button until both of these meet the required validity. So to do that, let's look back at our component and see what we've got here. Let's go ahead and set a property, or not a property, a data variable. Oops, there we go. And we're going to call it submit button disabled. And we're going to say true at the beginning, because we want that button to be disabled right off the bat when the boxes are empty. So we're going to come up here to our button, and we're going to set disabled equal submit button disabled. Now, obviously that doesn't do anything because we need to bind it. So we'll just use our shorthand binding, and we've bound it. Now, submit button disabled. We've bound our submit button disabled, and sign in. And I am just having a hard time with this sucker. There we go. Just force an error on it. There we go. Now it's disabled. So, what do we need to do now? Well, we need to enable the button when everything is good. So we'll simply say if Well, let's use this. We'll just grab this right here, validity, copy, because we know the one we're checking is valid. We're in this validity box, so we've already checked that. That's true. Now we just need to check to see if the password is also good. So if that's valid, then let's go ahead and just inline this. This dot submit button disabled equals false. All right, and then we can do the same thing down here. We can do if this dot, I'm doing it longhand again, aren't I? Refs dot text email dot check validity. Then this dot submitted or submit button disabled equals false. Okay. So now if we get email.com and we do 1, 2, 3, we've got an error. Where do I have an error? Text password, text email, that's not the right color. So we've got the D and the T backwards. Validity. There we go. All right, let's clear out our errors. We go robert@email.com, and then we go 1, 2, 3. Yeah, and you can see that we've now got access to it. Now, one of the problems is once we've got access to the button, there's nothing stopping somebody from coming back and making it invalid and then hitting sign in. Sure, we've got our backup, but we don't want to depend on that. So what we need to do is go to, whenever it goes back to invalid, we need to also this dot submit button disabled equals true. So we can re-enable, set the disabled. So we're setting it to disabled. This dot submit button disabled equals true. All right. So now, when we've got a fresh set, we can do robert@email.com, and we can do 1, 2, 3, 4. That allows our button back up. Now, if we change this, and I tell you what, my computer is giving me a really hard time. I'll tell you what, we're going to go ahead and restart our server application. Eliminate the old one. Bring up the inspector, bring up view, and we'll see if that doesn't help us out a little bit. All right, so we've got robert@email.com, 1, 2, 3, 4. Then everything's good, so we've got our sign-in button. Now we need to remove the sign-in button by coming back one. All right, so everything seems to be working as planned. What else do we need? Well, we're going to need a message that the user, that the parent component, when it checks that, they can come back and say, hey, those credentials didn't work for whatever reason, and we can put in any message we want. So let's go ahead and add a error message to our system, and what we'll do is we'll put that right above the button, and obviously right below our bottom form group. So we can do a let's do a div, and we'll do a v-if. v-if. We'll just call it error message. And let's give it some class. So we'll use Bootstrap as always. That's all we're going to use is Bootstrap throughout this whole thing. So we're going to do text, and we're going to center the text, and we're going to do text danger. Again, remember when we looked at the Bootstrap stuff that you had danger and info and warning and success or okay. These give us our color, and danger is equivalent to error. So it gives us that same red color that we were looking for. Okay, and that gives us our div. Let's go ahead and test this with something like this. Didn't work. All right. Obviously, we don't have an error message yet, so let's bring them down here, and we'll put in not error message. Yeah, error message. Let's bring it in as a prop. So here we go. We're going to bring in some props because we want the error message to come from the parent component. Depending on, we want to decouple. So we're going to do props, and we're going to do the long form with an object. Normally, you'll see that put in as an array with string characters for your props. But if we do it the long form, we can set validation on it. We can set a default and a type, and it has to meet that. So that just helps us out in the future. This is really nothing for the end user. This is for people who are actually building. So if you're reusing one of your components, this is a way for you to help validate the component as you type, because you don't simply memorize exactly how you built every component ever built. All right, so let's see. We're going to do error message. Sorry, error message. These are going to be objects. So we're going to do type, and it's going to be a string. Is it required? False. It's not required. And its default is going to be nothing, blank. All right. And the reason I'm going this route is because we're going to have some other properties here in a few minutes that we kind of want to ensure have the appropriate validation when you're building it. So let's go to hello view, and let's go ahead and pass that property. So we're going to do error message equals. We'll just do not valid email or password. Okay, we're setting that, and we show that it doesn't work. So we actually don't want that to be passed to it. We want, in the error message, we want the actual error message to be worked. So we're going to put in error message. Let's clean that up a little. There we go. All right, so now we've got the ability to pass our error message. Obviously, that would come from the user. So we send out the validation script or validation variables. They're going to check it against some database, that parent component, in whatever fashion it needs to. And if it doesn't work, it's going to kick back in some fashion with an error. And if that error occurs, then we can tell the component, hey, talk to you through your interface to the person trying to log in, and let them know what the problem is. So this error message obviously is not something we'll hard code. It would typically be a variable that the hello message the hello component would typically take care of. So if we're going to do this, I guess properly, let's just put a variable in there, and we'll do error message here, and it will match a data bound message here. Here equals nothing. All right, and we need to bind that. There we go. Okay, so now we bound it, and there's nothing in there. Let's go ahead and get rid of that. All right, and make sure everything's functioning. Wrong control save. There we go. Make sure everything's functioning. So now we've got fully functional component. It's now talking to its parent. The parent can send back a notification to the person signing in and let them know that it didn't work for whatever reason. Of course, if it does work, then the component will disappear with the page, and you'll send them appropriately to wherever they need to go through its parent component or through the Vue store. And that's, I think that's it. Login, spit, and handler for event, login credentials, add once in a while to show it's working. Okay, I think that we've got everything. So we now have a completely functional login component that resizes accordingly based in our Bootstrap information. We've got all the information. So as we type this in, we've got robert@email.com. That's good. And we can do 1, 2, 3, 4. All right. So it really looks like we've got most of the stuff that we need. Now, we've got, well, let's see here. Okay, so now here's what we don't have finished, is our password pattern and the message for the password pattern, because we're certainly not going to hard code a minimum of 2, maximum of 6, and then hard code the pattern in. So let's go ahead and add the pattern props. I'm in the wrong component. There we go. All right. So we need a prop for password message, and it will be of type string. Required is true. No, it's false. It doesn't have to have a password. You could put in one if you wanted to. And a default of, and let's go ahead and set the default just like we've got it set up. We'll set it up with, I will set it up from 4 to 10 or something like that. So password length must be greater than 4, but no, greater than 3, because we'll do 4, 3, 4, greater than 4. Yeah, greater than 4. Password length must be greater than 4, but not longer than 10. All right. And then let's go ahead and let's go ahead and set it up so we can bring in the regular expression pattern. So we're going to do password pattern. Password pattern is type string. Oops. String. We've got required equals false, because we're going to set it up with a default anyway. We're going to do default is, and based on what we put as the text for the password message, let's just do the dot that, and it's got to be greater than 4, which means or 10. That would actually mean 5, 10, 4, 5. Is it 3? I don't know. We'll check it in a second. Goodness gracious. Running out of steam. Okay. So now we've got the password message and the password pattern. And we need those usable in our pattern and message. So in our password help span, that hard code goes away. and we're going to do password message. Then in our password pattern, way over here, where is our password pattern? Did we not put one in? Required. It wrapped on us. Password pattern is going to be password pattern. And we're going to bind that. There we go. And spell it correctly. There we go. All right. Now, let's see what it doesn't like. Nothing. Okay. There we go. Now we've got our default. Password length must be greater than 4, but not longer than 10. And then 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, that's what I thought. Greater than 4. It's got to be 5. One of those simple things. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There we go. I could say greater or equal to. And okay, so that sets up our default. And now from our hello, we can pass those down. We can go ahead and let's go ahead and put this vertically so we can see what's going on here. There we go. Okay, so we can do password pattern, and that would be, sorry, password pattern is going to be, well, let's just change it to show that it is actually working, and we'll turn it back to 2 and 10 again, or 2 and 8. Password pattern, and then password message equals greater than 1 and less than 9. It's actually goes both ways, so I got that other one wrong too. Okay, there we go. And there you go, greater than 1, less than 9. We've passed it through. We've got the pattern. So greater than 1, 2 works, and then less than 9. So you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. There you go, less than 9. Okay. So we've got our pattern working. We can pass in the message to the customer. We've got the validation. Let's see, on the default, that needs to change to no longer than 10. Okay, so that actually works. I didn't say less than 10. So no longer than 10 actually is grammatically correct. Whew, running out of steam. Okay, so that really is it. I mean, that covers our Robert@email.com. That works. 1, 2, 3, 4. That works. We hit sign in. We get parent validation shown down here. And of course, login component. We've got greater than, everything has success. We have no error messages. That works. So now what I want to do is just kind of a little bonus. One of the things I've always liked about the login components is the ability to save your credentials. So let's look at saving our credentials in a cookie. So we're going to just put a little checkbox right down here, and we're going to save our credentials in a cookie and allow us to save the cookie, pull up the credentials on mount, and delete the cookie. Sounds good, right? All right, let's go ahead and finish this sucker out and do it right. That way, this is an actual usable component that you can use in your projects, and we're going through all the little pieces and parts that a lot of tutorials, skip. So let's go ahead and put in a cookie for this sucker. Okay, so we're going to want to reformat our component slightly because we want that sucker right there. Obviously, that would never work. So let me move this stuff over. I'm not getting a good split here. There we go. Okay, so we know that our button, we want we want a checkbox on the left side that says remember me, and then the button on the right hand side. So let's go ahead and know that we're going to be scaffolding that out. And we're going to do let's do a div class of checkbox. A class checkbox that comes directly from Bootstrap. So when you look up all your little form groups and input types, it'll show checkbox as one of them. We're going to do a label. It's a little different on the checkbox label because it comes afterwards. Input type is checkbox. The ID we're going to use is check remember. And we're going to have a V model, first one in the component for remember me. Okay. And then we're going to say remember me. Hit save, and looky there. So we've got our remember me. That out. Of course, our button is below it because our button is below it. So let's go ahead and just drag our button right up real quick into that checkboxes div. There we go. Clean. Oops. What was that? Okay. There we go. All right. Let's close this up. We're not using these, so we need this space. Now, if you're wondering where the errors are on this right-hand side, the errors are because we don't have a remember me. So, on this left side, we just need a remember me. Remember me. It's false. I certainly want to start that off as false for security reasons, mostly. Okay. Clear that up. Let's refresh that. Goodness gracious. Don't know if we want to. There we go. Okay. So I was wondering why that was bold, and the reason is because I misspelled checkbox in the outside div. Not CL, CH. Ta-da! All right, that's a little better looking. And of course, if we were to look at it under the size, there we go. So now we have a remember me checkbox that is functional but doesn't really do anything. And now we just need to do our cookie. So what we wanted to do in theory is that if we have an email address and a password, we want to be able to click on remember me, and so when we sign in, we put the cookies into the client's computer, right? If it's not signed in, then we'll want to delete the cookies. And of course, deleting non-existent cookies would be fine. But what we want to make sure of is that if they put the cookie in one time and they come back and they decide they don't want that in the next time, there is no delete button. Just if you don't check the remember me, if it's already stored, you want it to go ahead and delete it out. So in our login submit, let's clear some space here real quick. And let's go ahead and start writing our cookie functions. And we'll just go ahead and cookie functions. So if this dot remember me, because the checkbox returns just switches remember me between a boolean of false and true. So it's going to start off as false right here, and if we click here, it goes from false to true, and true to false, etc., etc. So we're going to check it. If the remember me is checked, then we're going to want to go ahead and save the cookie. And we can do that in the following form. The cookie has to come in a specific form, and that cookie is basically key equals value separated by a semicolon, and it's going to be the current date time in UTC, and it needs a path equals that, which tells the browser to use the local forward pass of localhost. In this case, localhost :8080 / that path. So if we don't have path, we don't have any way of knowing, because I understand some browsers won't delete keys if there's no path. We need the time, because the best way to delete a cookie is to set the time previous to now. If the cookie expires, the current date needs to be expires equals, and then we set the current date so that the browser knows which cookies to erase based on their expires date. So if we set the cookie current date to previous than now, then the cookie gets wiped out. And it's good practice too. I mean, even if you want the cookie to stay there, I'd only make it 6 months to a year maximum, and a year is probably excessive. If somebody's not reusing that particular application but once a year, there's a likelihood, but it's not very high. Anyway, that's our format. So let's go ahead and we're just going to go ahead and put that here on the side so we can keep that as a reminder. So first thing we need to do is go ahead and get this current date time in UTC. And I'm pretty sure I just pulled this off of either W3 or basically the internet somewhere. Okay, so d.setTime. We're going to d.getTime. And we're going to add, let's do 160, 170, 160. Yeah, about half a year, obviously. It's not exact. So we'll do 160 or 180. Let's, 180. Okay, so that's the number of days. Then we've got the number of hours in a day. Then we've got the number of minutes in an hour. Then we've got the number of seconds in a minute. And then we've got the number of milliseconds in a second. So that's how we add days to a current time. All right, let's see. And you may want to write that out there: days, hours, minutes, seconds, milliseconds. That's how we're getting. That's how we're doing that. We get the current time, and then we add 180 days for our expiration time. All right. So let's go ahead and set our cookie. Document. I'm really getting done. Cookie equals, and we'll do email. And I'm just going to kind of look over here at my template. Email plus expires equals plus d dot to UTC string. So we're going to bring that in as UTC plus dot path equals /. Okay. That gives us our password, because we can only save one key value pair at any given time. We can't do long strings. It's part of the protection that prevents storage of anything they could break security or anything. So very small limits. Password equals, ooh, hit a button, plus password. Then we need an expires equals plus D to UTC string plus path. That's that. All right. And we're going to log it out. So we'll do console.log. And of course, we'd want to remove these. We just set the cookie. Plus document.cookie. Guess what? That's how you read it back. So if you didn't know. Okay. That gets us our if. Let me go ahead and bring this out just so we have it. Bring this up. Oh goodness, Control Y. There we go. Now that's if it's set to this way when we hit the sign in button. But like we said, if we want to delete it, we need that to be empty. When we hit the sign in button, if that's false, we still want it to do something. We want it to delete. So we're going to do an else here if that returns false. And let's go ahead and delete the cookies. And so we're going to do document.cookie equals email equals, and we're going to leave the value of the key value pair blank because we're getting rid of it. Then we'll separate that out and we'll do expires equals, and we'll just set it to Thursday 01 Jan 1970, clearly before now, UTC. And this was the example I was given, so if you're wondering why I'm using that specific one, and then our breaking. If you're wondering why I'm using that specific one, it was just in the example. Document.cookie equals password equals expires equals Thursday, 01 January 1970 00 UTC, and path equals, I think I got a new keyboard or something. Goodness gracious. Path equals that. All right. Now, let's see. We'll console.log. We just deleted the cookies. And we'll pull back document.cookie. There we go. All right. Now, that covers that. Let's go ahead and set one. We can do robert@email.com, and we can do 1, 2, 3, 4. We're going to hit remember me, and we're going to send that sucker out. Let's see what we got. So we just set the cookie, and it says the cookie is email equals Robert email, and password equals 1, 2, 3, 4. So we set the cookie. And of course, this one's coming from Hello Vue, so the email is, and the password is, that is our event passing up. So we've got some console.logs that show us that we're setting the cookie and that we're passing our credentials up to the next component. All right. Now, If we go ahead and remove that and hit sign in, we should delete the original cookie. So if we came back up to it and it had our credentials in there from the cookie, and we decided we no longer wanted that saved there, maybe the computer became public, we could uncheck that and hit sign in. And it says we just deleted the cookies, and you can see we have no cookies left, and the email and password is sent up. Now, if we were to refresh this, obviously it's blank because we just deleted the cookies. So let's do robert@email.com and do 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's set the cookies, right? So we set the cookie to save it. But if when we first come up on this, we're not looking for the cookies, so it doesn't autofill. So the last thing that we have to do for this entire project is we have to create a onCreated or a method mounted property. I'm just going to use mounted so that everything's already there. And all we're going to do is when we load this sucker in, we're going to do our cookie work. And that's the only reason for this. This is all just cookie work. So on a mounted and created, we just need to do a direct function because we obviously have nothing to call the functions. So on our mounted, we're going to do let email equals document.cookie. Now we've got to actually pull this string apart when it comes in, because when it comes in, it's a long string that has one cookie, the expiration date, and the path, and two cookie, and they're just divided all up, and it's just a long string. There's no real meaning or match to it. And there's really two accepted ways to do it. One of them is using a matched regular expression to pull the data out, which is a really reliable way, and it's very fast. The other one is to use a for loop and splice them out based on their semicolons, because you notice that the key value, the expires, and the path is separated by colons. So you can basically use a split to split it into an array of values of key pairs, and then search for the name that you're looking for out of potentially could be a really long string, and then pull the value off that key. This is a much easier way, and I'm just going to copy and paste it. I looked it up. You could find it. It's just a really slick way of using regular expressions to pull back something that you're looking for, in this particular case, cookie information. So if you get nothing else out of this entire thing, this is a really nice way of pulling apart a cookie. All right, so we're going to let password equal document.cookie.match. Yeah, let's go ahead and do that. And again, I'm just going to copy it over from the existing template I have, the working copy. There you go. And of course, you guys can type it out, copy it, go get it on GitHub, wherever you want to. So that's going to extract our password value, and it's going to extract our email value. So this .refs, because we're gonna slap it right into the input boxes. Text email .value equals, and what we're gonna do is, because it could be empty, we're just going and it's going to be the last in the array set. We're going to do email value equals email, right? We're going to question the email. Has it got anything in it? If so, pop it off the end. Otherwise, assign it nothing, an empty string. All right, and then this .refs.text password .value equals password. Whoops, password. And the same thing, password.pop. Think I write PHP enough? And of course, this is just a ternary if-then statement. If you're unfamiliar with those, just look up ternary if-then statement, and it will show you all about how to use this nice little if-then. And that's what it's doing. It's doing if the password exists, password.pop, else password equals nothing. Okay, so we've got that. Now, let's see. The other problem, of course, now is that if we refresh this, we've got it coming in, we've got it setting into the boxes, but see, we've got them in, we've got the password, but our button isn't still disabled because we never set anything to enable it. So, because it's saved as a cookie, it's already passed validation once. There's no need to revalidate the whole thing. Let's just say if there's an email, and we'll just do it in line to save some space. If email, this dot submit button disabled, right? Yes, disabled equals false. We don't want it disabled. All right, and then let's go ahead and just console log. This is only for our information purposes. We just checked to see if there were cookies. And document cookie, cookie. And there we go. And honestly, we're completely done. That's the entire project. Let's go ahead and run through it. If you have any questions on any of this, the second part of the tutorial, I did not expect this to last 2 hours with part 1 and part 2. And I'm just running out of steam, and my brain is not functioning as sharply as it should. So if you have any questions or don't understand how anything's working, be sure to put them in the comments. But let's run through this real quick. Basically, we've got a cookie. It's stored. We've got the Remember Me button. We can delete that, right? So we've sent it up. If it came back from the database, our login would obviously disappear and we'd go to a different page. Let's go ahead and refresh this as if we were starting from blank. Okay, and make this a little larger. There we go. So, starting from blank, we can do Robert, doesn't matter, email.com, and our password is 1234. We can leave that blank. When we do, we see that we deleted the cookies if they existed. There were none there, but it doesn't cause there's no harm in just going ahead and making sure there's none there. And it doesn't delete all cookies. It only deletes the cookies that applied to you and your program. So you don't have to worry about wiping out all of somebody else's cookies. The Remember Me was not set, so we've passed up to the Hello Vue parent object the credentials. And so let's go ahead and hit it again. We'll hit Remember Me, and now we'll save the cookie. Shazam, we saved the cookie. Now the cookie just read back, and it shows that we've saved our email and password cookie. So if we reboot this from scratch, completely wiping it out, we still have email and password now brought in from the cookie. We just checked to see if there were cookies. Email and password existed in the cookie, so we can go ahead and auto-fill out the username and password. Now, one thing that I want to show here is that I don't save the Remember Me button in the cookie. I could, and you're certainly welcome to. But as a security risk, one of the things that is recommended is to go ahead and clear that so that the user has to press the Remember Me every single time he logs in if he wants to be remembered. Otherwise, it will end up being blank when he first loads it in. He hits sign in, it deletes the cookie, and the next time he comes, it's empty, he, she, whichever it may be. So the only downside is that you have to keep pushing the Remember Me button. But as I said, you could save the state of the Remember Me button just like we have everything else in a cookie, and then assign it on MountUp to remember that you had selected Remember Me last time. But it's a security thing. So if you make sure they push it every time, if they end up on a public computer or the computer turns public or they sell a laptop or whatever, if it's important for the login to be secure, then it's less likely that they will forget to uncheck a Remember Me button on a login. Anyway, that is it. That's the complete project. I will have it on GitHub for you. I hope this gets you everything you need. It's a really slick version that I thought was a really nice way of setting everything up. Um, so, yeah, so you can't sign in. So if you have any questions, be sure and put them in the comments. Be sure to subscribe because I need subscribers. I need lots of subscribers. I want lots and lots of people in this community, both for me to help out and for you to give me feedback so that I can start to learn some of the tricks and trades from other developers as they're learning or even experienced developers. Subscribe. Give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down and let me know why you gave me a thumbs down if you did. I'm not scared of constructive criticism. I know these videos are long and I know that I'm sometimes winded, and in this particular video, I was tired. I've been doing this now for almost 4 hours and my brain is just regurgitating this stuff is getting a little bit scattered. So otherwise, I hope you guys enjoy this. Please comment. I really do want to hear from you guys and let me know what you think. Other than that, have a great one. I hope this is functional. If we need to port this over to Material Design Lite or Pure CSS, or not Pure.css is a framework, or if we need to, and we can do Pure CSS if you wanted to go that way. If you want to port it over to Foundation or something like that, let me know. We'll work on creating this exact same component in a different framework, and that way we can keep using the component every single time we build a project, and all it is a different framework, but we'll have specific components for Bootstrap 3 and framework and whatever. It may be the same component, but it's going to have different style uh, uh, class names. Other than that, we'll see you next time. Thank you very much. Bye.